The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the machines surrounding Rita. Anthony sat beside her, his gaze never leaving her face. He had been waiting for her to wake up, to speak with her, to finally tell her everything he'd been holding back. And now that she was awake, his heart pounded in his chest as he searched for the right words. Rita's hand was still in his, her fingers gently curling around his as if she was afraid he might slip away. She looked so fragile, her face pale but her eyes bright with recognition. "You're awake," Anthony whispered, as though he couldn't quite believe it. Rita nodded slowly, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I'm awake, and I'm okay," she replied weakly, though she still felt weak, fragile. Anthony leaned forward, his face serious as he held her hand tighter. "I'm so sorry, Rita. This shouldn't have happened." Her eyes softened. "You don't have to apologize. It wasn't your fault." But he shook his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's my fault. I should have been more careful with you. I let everything get out of control, and now," his voice trailed off, and he sighed, unable to finish the thought. Rita could see the guilt in his eyes, and it made her heart ache. She reached out with her other hand, gently cupping his face. "We both know what's been happening, Anthony. You've been more than there for me." Her words made his heart skip a beat. But there was more he needed to say, more he had to ask. Anthony took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto hers with a determined intensity. "Rita, I need you to hear me out. What I'm about to say comes from the deepest part of me, and I need you to know it's the truth. I want to be with you. Forever. I don't care about the past, the mistakes, the people who've tried to tear us apart. All I care about is you and this baby." Rita's brow furrowed slightly, a small glimmer of confusion in her eyes. "I want to marry you," Anthony continued, his voice unwavering. "I want to protect you, protect our baby. I don't want to leave your side, Rita. I want to be the man you can depend on. I'll be the father our child needs, and I'll love you both for the rest of my life." Rita blinked, her heart racing as his words sank in. She didn't know what to say at first. The magnitude of what he was offering was overwhelming. She had never expected this. Never expected to hear him speak so openly about love, commitment, and a future with her. "But," Rita began, her voice shaking slightly, "I don't want you to feel pressured, Anthony. You've already done so much for me. I don't want you to make this decision out of pity." He shook his head vigorously, cutting her off. "It's not pity, Rita. It's love. I've loved you for so long, and now more than ever, I want to be with you. I know it's complicated, and I know we've both been hurt. But that doesn't change the way I feel about you. I want to build something real with you, something that lasts. And I want to protect you, every step of the way." Rita's chest tightened, her emotions swirling in a whirlwind of uncertainty, gratitude, and fear. She had never allowed herself to fully believe in a future with anyone, not after everything she had been through. But looking into Anthony's eyes, she saw something different, something real. Something she hadn't thought was possible. "Anthony," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. His grip on her hand tightened, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for her response. "I can't make promises right now," Rita continued, her voice shaky but sincere. "I've been through so much, and I don't know if I'm ready to commit to something as big as marriage. But I don't want to lose you, either. I've never had anyone be this sure about me." Anthony gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his thumb caressing her cheek. "You won't lose me, Rita. I'll give you all the time you need. I'll wait for you. I'll always be here for you and for our baby. I want to build a life with you, step by step, however long it takes." Tears welled up in Rita's eyes as she gazed at him, the depth of his sincerity hitting her like a tidal wave. She had never felt so cared for, so cherished. "I don't know what to say." Anthony smiled softly, his thumb brushing away a tear that had fallen down her cheek. "You don't have to say anything yet. Just know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. And whenever you're ready, whenever you feel ready, we'll take the next step together." Rita's heart swelled with a mixture of emotions. She wasn't sure what the future held, but in that moment, she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't alone anymore. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. "For being here, for caring." Anthony leaned in, brushing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "You don't have to thank me, Rita. You never will. I'll love you no matter what." And as he sat back in his chair, watching her eyes flutter closed again, his heart was full. He had made his promise, and now it was up to both of them to find a way forward. Together. The hospital corridors were quieter now. Visiting hours were almost over, and most of the patients' rooms dimmed into silence. But in Rita's room, Anthony sat in the lone chair beside her bed, still holding her hand gently, his eyes fixed on her sleeping face. He hadn't moved much since he arrived, barely eating, barely resting. It was his promise to her, and to the child she carried. But just outside the room, heavy footsteps approached with purpose. Harry. He had watched silently from afar for the past 2 days, observing Anthony's devotion, the way he hovered protectively around his sister. But now, it was time to speak his mind. Anthony barely looked up when Harry opened the door and stepped in. "We need to talk," Harry said, voice low but firm. Anthony turned his gaze to him and nodded. "Let's step out. I don't want to wake her." They moved out to the hallway, where the dim lights cast soft shadows across the walls. The moment the door shut behind them, Harry's calm demeanor shifted. He stepped closer, folding his arms across his chest. "I've been watching you, Anthony. Sitting by her side like a saint, like a man in love. And I need to ask you, what exactly do you want with my sister?" Anthony straightened, his expression sincere but unreadable. "I want to protect her. I want to be there for her and the baby. That's all I've ever wanted." Harry scoffed softly. "That's not an answer. Don't give me vague promises. She's been through hell and back. Used, humiliated, hunted like a criminal by people who can't stand her success." He stepped forward again, eyes sharp. "So if you're playing some pity card, or acting out of obligation, I swear to you, I won't let it slide. My sister's not some fragile toy for a man to test his kindness on. She needs real commitment. Stability." Anthony's jaw clenched slightly. He didn't flinch, didn't back down. "Harry, I love her. This isn't about pity or obligation. I want a future with her. I want to be the father of her child, the man she can lean on. I'm not here because I feel sorry for her. I'm here because she's the strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known. And if you don't believe that, then you haven't really seen how I look at her." Harry's eyes narrowed. He saw no flicker of hesitation in Anthony's eyes. That frustrated him even more, because he could tell Anthony was serious. She trusted the wrong people before, and it nearly destroyed her, Harry said, his voice lowering. I won't let her fall again. Not on my watch. If you hurt her, if you ever give her a reason to regret choosing you, I won't care who you are or how close you've been. I'll come for you. Anthony nodded slowly, no offense taken, only respect in his eyes. I'd expect nothing less from her brother, he replied evenly. You don't have to threaten me, Harry. If I ever hurt her, if I ever fail her, I'll walk away before you even need to ask me to. But I won't. Not now, not ever. I intend to marry her. Not because she's pregnant. Because I love her. There was a tense silence between the two men. Harry finally gave a slow nod. We'll see. I'll be watching. He turned to walk away but stopped mid-step, glancing back at Anthony with a slightly softer expression. If you're serious, Anthony, then don't just promise her things. Be the man she deserves. With that, Harry walked off down the hallway, his shoulders still stiff but slightly less guarded. Anthony stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, then returned quietly to Rita's bedside, his resolve even stronger now. He knew he had more to prove than words. Anthony sat back down beside Rita, gently brushing a loose strand of hair from her face as she slept peacefully. His heart, which had been burdened with anxiety and uncertainty, now felt a calm warmth growing within it. Harry's words still echoed in his mind, not as a threat, but as a mark of trust. A protective brother doesn't confront a man unless he sees potential in him. Anthony smiled softly to himself. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't standing alone in his intentions. Harry had made it clear, he would be watching. But beneath the warnings, there had been something else, a flicker of belief. A silent handing over of responsibility. And that meant the world to him. He reached for Rita's hand again, holding it gently. Your brother's a tough one, he whispered with a chuckle, his eyes never leaving her face. But I'd be the same if I were him. I know what's at stake here. And I won't let either of you down. As the hospital lights dimmed into the night, Anthony stayed right where he was, his fingers entwined with hers, a quiet promise forming in his heart. He would earn their trust, protect her peace, and fight any battle that came their way. Because now, she wasn't just someone he cared about. She was his home. That night, while Rita slept peacefully under the soft hum of hospital machines, Anthony remained seated beside her, his gaze unwavering. He gently brushed his thumb over her hand, thoughts racing behind his calm expression. It's time, he murmured to himself, a firm resolution settling in his chest. He had waited long enough, respecting her space, hiding his emotions behind the mask of friendship, showing up silently whenever she needed him. But seeing her nearly fall apart, seeing the danger surrounding her multiply, he realized the time for subtlety had passed. He couldn't afford to lose her to fear, or to the enemies lurking in the shadows. She needed stability. She needed security. She needed love, unshaken and undeniable. Anthony stood and walked quietly to the hallway. He pulled out his phone and opened his calendar. Step 1. Plan something personal and meaningful. Something that reminded Rita she was cherished, not for what she could give, but for who she was. Step 2. Talk to her family, especially Harry. Make it official. He wanted them to know he wasn't here to play games. He was here to build a future. Step 3. Protect her and the baby at all costs. Emotionally, physically, mentally. No compromises. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled to himself. Tomorrow, he would talk to her, not just about her health, or work, or the chaos around them, but about love, about starting again, about giving their connection a real chance. Anthony took one last look at her sleeping face, then whispered with all the hope in his chest, "I'm going to win your heart, Rita. Not because I deserve it, but because I'll never stop proving that I do." And with that, the pursuit began. Not in secret, not in fear, but with the full force of a man ready to fight for the woman he loved. And he was ready. Back at the company headquarters, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. With Rita confined to a hospital bed and the family's focus entirely on her well-being, a quiet tension brewed in the air, like the stillness before a storm. Lynette and Anita had assumed temporary charge in her absence, both wearing masks of concern, pretending to be supportive and dutiful. But behind the facade, wheels were turning, fast and ruthlessly. They'd been waiting for this window, just a sliver of opportunity to execute what had long been brewing in the dark. Departments started reporting strange changes in protocols. Approvals that usually required Rita's sign-off were being mysteriously bypassed. Confidential files were accessed under vague, executive orders. And key clients had started receiving whispers from the inside, hints of instability, doubts about the company's leadership. Lynette's people were acting fast, dispatching coded memos, quietly altering figures, siphoning data from the finance department. Anita, ever the actress, played her role with charm, distracting staff with impromptu meetings and fake policy upgrades while their loyal operatives made their moves behind the scenes. To the untrained eye, it looked like everything was under control. But one person noticed. Jason, Rita's long-trusted assistant, had been quietly keeping tabs. Though not a loud presence, he had always been sharp, with an eye for detail and a loyalty that ran deeper than most knew. The moment he noticed two unusually large files being exported under Rita's name, despite her being hospitalized, he knew something was wrong. He called Harry. 10 minutes later, Harry stood in Rita's office, going through her laptop, flanked by Jason and the company's top cybersecurity head. When he saw the list of accessed files, investor contracts, R&D plans, and private board meeting transcripts, his blood boiled. "Shut this down immediately," Harry ordered. "Start an internal investigation. I want every move Anita and Lynette have made in the last 72 hours traced and documented." Jason nodded sharply. "Already on it, sir." As he stormed out of the office, Harry clenched his fists, fury burning in his chest. They thought with Rita down, the company would be vulnerable. They thought wrong. It was time to smoke out the enemy. No more subtlety. No more mercy. And this time, they wouldn't see it coming. Rita's eldest brother, Martin, the most composed and calculating of the siblings, had always operated in the background. A man of few words and sharp instincts, he rarely involved himself in the day-to-day affairs of the company, but when he did, the effect was seismic. After being briefed by Harry on the unusual activities in Rita's absence, Martin took matters into his own hands. Unlike Harry, who wore his emotions openly, Martin's approach was cold, methodical, and discreet. He made no formal announcements, no confrontations, only quietly activated the internal surveillance systems he had designed years ago, originally meant for emergencies like espionage and sabotage. He spent hours in his private office, eyes glued to multiple monitors as security feeds rolled, documents uploaded, and staff movements tracked. It was past midnight when the breakthrough came. A silent alert pinged his screen, an unauthorized access from the CEO's private drive. Martin narrowed his eyes as the camera zoomed in. Anita. There she was, standing alone in Rita's office, her posture tense as she inserted a USB drive into one of the ports on Martin's computer, mistaking it for a terminal still connected to the CEO's cloud. She didn't know this particular machine was linked to Martin's private server, rigged with tracking software. She was fast, too fast for someone unfamiliar with the contents she was extracting. Martin watched as folder after folder was copied, financial records, confidential agreements, board correspondences. She didn't hesitate. This wasn't a rookie move. He pressed a silent alarm. Within seconds, 2 armed security men emerged from the shadows outside the building, locking every exit. Martin didn't move right away. He gave her time to think she'd succeeded. Then he stood, picked up his phone, and calmly said, "Bring her to my office. Now." 15 minutes later. Anita sat stiffly across from Martin in his dimly lit office, the USB drive now in his hand. She was pale but trying to maintain composure, arms crossed like a defiant schoolgirl. "You're brave," Martin said coolly, his tone unreadable. "Or just incredibly foolish." She scoffed. "This is a misunderstanding. I was working late, Anne." "Save the lies for the police, Anita," Martin interrupted. "You're not alone in this, and you know it. Tell me, who else is helping you? Or should we go ahead and release the footage to the authorities and let them dig deeper?" Anita's face twitched. Martin leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "You think with Rita hospitalized, we wouldn't watch our backs? You underestimate this family." She said nothing. But Martin could tell, she was crumbling inside. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out into the night. This company was built with blood, sweat, and sacrifice. No one tears it down from the inside. Turning back, he added, "You're done here, Anita. I suggest you start talking before your name becomes headline news." And for the first time in years, Anita couldn't speak. She had been caught red-handed, and the worst part, she hadn't even seen it coming. Martin had always played the long game. For weeks, he had quietly monitored Anita's movements. She was smart, yes, but not smarter than him. He'd noticed the subtle shifts, how she volunteered for Rita's duties a little too quickly after her fall, how she spent time in departments unrelated to her role, how she constantly communicated in whispers and veiled glances with Lynette. Something wasn't right. But Martin didn't confront her immediately. He dug deeper, followed the trail until he discovered something that gave him leverage. Anita's family. Her parents and younger brother were in the city, living quietly, unaware of the storm about to hit. Through private channels, Martin had them brought into protective custody. Not harmed, but certainly terrified. They were shown a safe place and fed well, but not told why they were being held. Martin had them filmed. Not violently, but enough to show Anita that he had the power to make things very uncomfortable. Now, in his office, he held a tablet in front of her. The screen showed her brother pacing in distress, her mother crying softly, her father pounding on a locked door. Anita's breath caught in her throat. "What have you done?" she whispered. Martin's voice was icy calm. "They're safe. For now. That depends on you. I want names, Anita. Who's pulling the strings? You're smart enough to know this game only ends one way." Anita's hands trembled in her lap. "If I talk, they'll kill me. If you don't talk, Martin replied coldly, "You'll watch your entire family suffer." "Your move." Tears welled up in her eyes. The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Then, slowly, she reached into her purse and pulled out a second phone, one she hadn't registered with company protocol. She scrolled quickly and dialed. The line rang once. Twice. Then someone picked up. A distorted voice answered, "I told you not to call unless." "I had no choice," Anita said, trying to keep her voice level. "They know. I need help, please." Martin motioned to his assistant, who recorded the call with high-tech equipment hidden in the ceiling. The voice continued, this time more annoyed. "You're pathetic. We gave you one job." "I can fix this," Anita stammered. "But I need you to." The line went dead. Martin smirked, pausing the recording and sliding the tablet back into his drawer. "That's all I needed." Anita looked at him with horror. "You tricked me." He stood slowly and walked toward the door. "You tricked yourself, Anita. Game over." And with a single nod, security escorted her out, no longer an insider, no longer a threat. But Martin knew this was just the beginning. They finally had a voice. Martin sat alone in his office that night, the only light coming from the bright glow of his computer screens. Files, footage, call records, everything Anita had been involved in, were laid out before him like a well-designed trap that finally made sense. And then it all clicked. Lynette. The pattern was eerily similar. Lynette had been involved in strange side meetings, secretive phone calls, and suspicious absences. But now, the call Anita had made confirmed it. The distorted voice on the other end. Martin had heard it before. He ran it through a voice modulation program, stripped away the distortion, and narrowed down potential matches from archived surveillance data. And there it was. A man named Cyrus Mwanga. He was a known corporate predator, one who had a reputation for manipulating employees within organizations to steal confidential data, especially before high-stake biddings. He would sell the data to rival companies or use it to sabotage competitors. Martin leaned back in his chair, connecting the final threads. Cyrus was involved with Lynette, not romantically alone, there was something deeper, a business alliance. He had funded her lifestyle in the city, promised her status, power, maybe even love. And she had willingly handed him access to everything. They were using Anita as the front, a disposable pawn. But Lynette? She was his anchor in the company. She had been planting people in various departments, slowly building a network that could hand Cyrus every last detail about the company's bidding strategy. Martin stood, fury tightening his chest. They'd underestimated Rita's family. They thought with Rita hospitalized, and Harry and the others distracted, they could move in unnoticed. But they were wrong. Martin picked up his phone and dialed Harry. "We have him," he said grimly. "It's Cyrus Mwanga. He's the one pulling all the strings. Lynette's working directly under him. He's after the confidential bidding documents. We need to tighten our security fast before they make their next move." There was a pause, then Harry replied, "What do you need from me?" Martin's voice hardened. "Everything. I'm launching a full security lockdown tomorrow. I want surveillance on Lynette. I want a full audit of data access. And I want every person she's interacted with flagged." Harry didn't hesitate. "I'm on it. We protect the company. And we protect Rita." Martin ended the call and turned back to the screen. A photo of Lynette smiling beside Cyrus popped up on the screen from a private hotel security feed. "You thought we were asleep," he muttered. "But now, we're wide awake." Clever and calm, Martin knew the enemy wouldn't stop at Anita. Her arrest had caused a ripple, but not a wave. Someone else would be sent, someone smarter, more calculated, and far less reckless. And just as expected, a new recruit appeared. He introduced himself as Jonas, freshly transferred from the analytics department of one of their branches. A man with polished manners, an impressive resume, and the kind of humility that didn't arouse suspicion. But Martin had seen too much to trust such convenient timing. He smiled and welcomed Jonas warmly. But behind that smile, Martin had already moved the chess pieces. Step 1. A fake server was set up. It mirrored the actual bidding data architecture but contained slightly altered, seemingly legitimate documents. At a glance, nothing would seem out of place. But in reality, the projections were exaggerated, the strategy too aggressive, designed to fail if applied. Jonas was quickly given clearance to the core documents, just enough to feel important. Martin let him sniff around while IT, under strict instructions, tracked every file he accessed, every time he copied, downloaded, or exported anything. And just as predicted, within days, Jonas began transferring files to an encrypted flash drive late in the evening when most employees had left. Martin watched from the control room, sipping coffee as he observed Jonas from a hidden camera. "You're good," Martin murmured. "But I'm better." Step 2. Feeding the leak. To make it all more believable, Martin fabricated a last-minute adjustment to the bidding strategy, and sent a false internal memo to make it look like the team was reacting to new market changes. Jonas, hidden in plain sight, made sure to copy the updated files and quietly sent them through a secure back channel. Martin smirked. Hook, line, and sinker. The night before the actual bid submission, Martin, Harry, and their trusted board members finalized the real documents in a secure underground boardroom with no online connectivity. Everything was printed, sealed, and escorted with armed security. Meanwhile, back in his hideout, Cyrus received the fake bidding plans. He smiled wickedly and instructed one of his affiliated companies to prepare a better offer, exactly tailored to beat what he thought Rita's company would submit. Unbeknownst to him, he was playing with poison. D-Day arrived. The competitors streamed into the luxurious conference center. Cameras flashed, companies presented their proposals, confident, flashy, impressive. Cyrus' affiliate company delivered theirs with smugness, certain of a win. Then, Rita's team walked in, calm, poised, and strangely quiet. When Martin stepped up with the real documents and unveiled a strategy that no one expected, brilliant, balanced, and backed by data no rival had seen, shock rippled across the room. Even Cyrus' team realized they'd been played. Jonas. He vanished the same night. But Martin had already anticipated that and had the local authorities tracking his every move. Back at the company, Martin sat in his office and dialed Harry. "We bought time. They'll be scrambling to understand how we fooled them," he said. Harry chuckled on the other end. "You're a genius." Martin grinned. "No. I'm just my sister's brother. And I protect what's ours." He leaned back, watching security footage of Lynette pacing nervously at a cafe, waiting for news that would never be in her favor. The enemy had walked right into their own trap. Now, it was time to strike. The real hunt had just begun. The grand ballroom of the prestigious Orion Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Elegantly dressed executives from top companies occupied their reserved spots, their voices humming with confidence and speculation. Cameras flashed, screens glowed with presentations, and tension hung thick in the air like perfume. At a table near the front, Lynette sat with an arrogant smile playing at her lips. She wore a navy blue designer suit and her hair was pinned into a sophisticated updo. Next to her, James leaned back in his seat, one leg lazily crossed over the other, looking more confident than ever. They were seated as part of the team representing a rival company, an affiliate of Cyrus, the men secretly backing their schemes. Lynette glanced across the room and spotted a few of Rita's colleagues whispering in anxious tones. "Look at them," she sneered, sipping her champagne. "They're probably still trying to patch things up." It must have crushed Rita to miss out on the final preparations. James chuckled, leaning closer. "With the documents we got, there's no way they can win. They're done." "Exactly," Lynette said smugly. "By the time they realize they've been outbid, the contracts will already be signed." A nearby screen flashed, showing the event's timeline. The bids were about to be presented. "I almost feel bad for her," James muttered sarcastically. "She should have just stayed in the village and raised goats or something." Lynette laughed out loud. Instead, she chose to challenge lions in the city. Her loss. They clinked their glasses, already celebrating a victory they believed was secured. Then, the MC stepped on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. The presentation from Stellar Tech Solutions is up next." Lynette smirked. "Here we go. Showtime." The room dimmed slightly, and a spotlight focused on the stage. A figure stepped up, Martin. James blinked. "Wait. Isn't that her brother?" Lynette stiffened. "What's he doing here?" Martin's voice echoed through the hall, clear and composed. "Good afternoon. Representing our CEO and my sister, Ms. Rita Collins, I am here to present our final bid proposal." A new file was uploaded on the massive screen behind him. James frowned. "That's not what we stole, is it?" Lynette's eyes widened. The figures, the strategy, it was all different. Balanced. Refined. Brilliant. "No, no, no," she whispered. "This can't be right." Martin went on with poise, showing charts, market forecasts, and customized solutions tailored to the client's needs, everything completely different from what she and James had. James clenched his fists. "We've been tricked." Lynette's breath caught in her throat. Across the room, representatives of competing firms were already whispering, clearly impressed. And when Martin ended with a confident smile and a thunderous applause followed, Lynette slowly sank in her seat, her smug demeanor dissolving into dread. James glanced around, noticing Rita's team smiling knowingly, while a nearby camera caught every flicker of their panic. "I told you," Lynette whispered in disbelief. "They set us up."